Dear black people, though I criticize us on this show, it's only to hold us accountable. I will not let white folk talk crazy to us, whether in the comments or just online in general. When they talk negatively about us and share disparaging remarks, I will be addressing that because I feel it's important that we stand up for ourselves and let these people know who we are and what we're about. Not trying to be funny, but some white people are not good at math. Really, on average, most whites aren't that good at math. So as black people, we may need to teach them again like we did when the Romans and the Greeks came to both East Africa and West Saharan Africa. Yes, the Sub-Saharan West Africans did teach the Greeks and Romans. They write about it in their own history. I actually came across a comment this morning. I woke up 3 in the morning. I was a little hot and sweaty, and I saw a comment from a viewer basically trying to rip me to shreds, saying that they wanted proof and evidence of everything I was saying. So I'm about to go to that comment, and I'll say your name. Jose Morel 2307. Hopefully the information that I give you, you look into it in case you don't agree with it. But your comment was, so where's the documentation of that language in writing? And that is in response to when Nick Fuentes was saying that Sub-Saharan Africans, which he meant West Africans, not the East Africans in Egypt and Sudan. He was saying that Sub-Saharan Africans had no language and no written writing. So, for example, I found over 11 languages that the pre-colonial people knew that the Africans had. So they had language in Ghana, they had language in Cameroon, they had language in Sierra Leone, they had language in Nigeria, they had language in Libya, they had language in Liberia, they had Swahili, they had a few other languages, Wolof. It's so many that I don't even recall, but there's much documentation of this language. And not only is there documentation of this language, I discussed Mansa Musa a couple episodes ago. He was the guy from West Africa that caused inflation worldwide because he was giving out gold. So to say black people weren't good at math, they were doing very well to be able to, for one man to be able to cause worldwide inflation. But Mansa Musa had some colleges that were established way in the 8th century, the 900s. So these colleges were established way before Nick Fuentes was talking about the Northern Europeans penetrating Sub-Saharan Africa. So one of these colleges was in Timbuktu. So a lot of people have jokes about sending people to Timbuktu. What's ironic is that in Timbuktu, you have one of the, if not the oldest university in the world. And can't remember the name offhand, but I was able to pull it up because I was a little prepared for your comment because I seen it earlier today. The university is called Sankora. And it was founded in 1989, and it grew all throughout the 9th century, all through the 14th century. And there was tons of manuscripts, and they were educating lots of people in Spain, Italy, Greeks, Romans, just the whole Southern Europe. So yes, the Southern Europeans had intelligence. I'm not saying that they came and that they were savages and didn't know anything, but I'm also saying that when they came across the Africans, they talk about how the Africans were different. They say the Africans were more impulsive. They say that the Africans were more violent, but they didn't say the Africans were stupid. They definitely acknowledged that there was systems of governments. You had kings, you had monarchs, you had artistry, you had masonry, you had different forms of political power, different tribes and different structures. So there was a complete society throughout the vast portions of West Africa, Central Africa, and the Congo, down towards Southern Africa. It was civilization, just not quite as advanced as Europe. Not saying that there's not a bit of truth in what modern whites are saying, that Sub-Saharan Africans weren't as advanced, but they were advanced. I mean, not advanced, but they were knowledgeable. Continuing on with your comment, because there was a few things that I think I saw that wasn't factual from you. Whites destroyed the evidence and erased it. In fact, whites are the only ones interested in studying cultures. Clearly, this is false. Asian people study culture, Africans, Middle Eastern people, Northern, Southern Europeans. The world is full of people who are interested in studying cultures. If anything, if you go to the Britain Museum, they have tons of artifacts from everywhere else. This is my question to some of the Northern Europeans. Why is the British Museum full of everybody else's culture and everybody else's history? If everybody else was incompetent, if everybody else didn't have culture, if everybody else wasn't educated, why did the British people find it so important to save those people's history? Obviously, other cultures have histories that are rich and diverse. From the Southern Asians to the Southeast Asians to the Sub Saharan Africans, the Northern Africans, the Eastern Africans, even the people in the Americas like the Mayans and the Aztecs, and Northern Europeans. I will never take away what Northern Europeans have done for medicine, what they have done for the world. But as we're learning, when we look at things like Alzheimer's and other diseases, I know I'm rambling, but I'm just telling you guys this as it comes to my head. But we're now finding out that what they thought was causing Alzheimer's was like the plaques in people's heads. And they're finding out, yes, they have plaques, but it's other things that are causing the plaques that is causing the Alzheimer's. So those some of the older things like dieting and exercise were laughed at by the Western Europeans. Now they're talking about they're going to start doing things like massaging people's brains and having them change their diet to help with their guts and help with other things going on with their brain. Because like the elder people said in all these dumb and low IQ cultures, the world and the body is one thing. So though they may have not had the technology to understand why these things were the case, some of their ways they treated medicine holistically and some of the ways they treated the environment, like now we recycle, some of those principles are still being used today. So don't be so quick to talk bad about the Sub-Saharan Africans. Don't be so quick to talk about these ancient civilizations. Yes, we have progressed since then, but we learned a lot from our elders and our forefathers. So whoever this is, Jose Morel 2307, put some respect on the Sub-Saharan Africans' name. If you know something about old Egypt, it's thanks to the whites. No, clearly the Egyptians have hieroglyphics. They tracked their own history from like 18,000 years ago with, forgot the Nubian queen, but she was a Nubian, queen, all the way to Cleopatra, who was Macedonian, southeast, Nefertiti. Nefertiti was the queen back 8,000 years ago, but then Cleopatra who was Macedonian, which is Southeast European, so white. She was the queen later on towards the latter part of the Egyptian dynasty. But the Egyptians were tracking their history the whole time. So clearly they had writing and ways of keeping up with time and history if they were able to track their kings over the course of 8,000 years. Also, if you want to know, the 365-day calendar actually comes from, yes, the Egyptians, but it comes from the Egyptians who were in modern day Sudan. So I'm not sure what you guys know about the Egyptian culture, but everybody talks about Egypt towards the end around Cleopatra. But the Egyptians are actually coming from Kush, around Ethiopia, around Sudan. So the Egyptians already knew there were 365 days in the calendar before they had even got to Memphis, which is higher up, closer towards the Red Sea. So a lot of these things that you guys are crediting Egypt with as a whole, you're thinking about the light-skinned Egyptians, and you're thinking about Egypt when the Romans had power of the Egyptian culture, and when the Macedonians had power of the Egyptian culture. But way back thousands of years, the black people who were Sub-Saharan Africans, even though they're on the east, they were dark-skinned, they already had implemented the 365-day calendar from looking at the planets and looking at the stars and things. So to have a 365-day calendar, again, they had math. And as people know, the Egyptians as well as the Middle Eastern culture, but I call them Southwest Asians, they were doing arithmetic and geometry and back then what was considered high-level math even before the Europeans came. So Nick Fuentes, you're a motherfucking liar. There was tons of education in these now third world places. I know I'm going, but I'll just finish this comment because I remember it caught my attention late at night. By the way, Jesus Christ. And by the way, Egyptians are descendants of Berbers. Lord have mercy. Not Sub-Saharan blacks. Okay. When you look at Africa, there's West Sub-Saharan Africans. Those are the people like me, which is Homo erectus. Homo erectus was about 1.8 million years ago. Homo sapiens, who are also dark. Homo erectus came from Egypt, and then not Egypt, but Ethiopia, and then expanded into West Sub-Saharan Africa, and then stopped because of the ocean, and then spread throughout the world. Now, later on, more modern humans were Ethiopians who are also dark-skinned. They had straighter hair like the Ethiopians have now, like Europeans have, like Asians have. They came about 300,000 years ago. They were also dark-skinned. So my point of saying this to you is that no, the Berbers, who are light-skinned Northern Africans, were not the people who created the Ethiopians and the Egyptians. It was the reverse. The dark-skinned people came first, and then the people became lighter as their diet changed and as they moved away from the amount of sunlight that you have near the equator. If you pay attention, you will notice that people in Sub-Saharan Africa and people in like Mexico and the Caribbeans, they look darker. The world is round, though many people seem to think it's flat. The world is round, so at the bulges, you're getting an intense amount of sunlight, so the people's skin is dark to protect them from the UV rays from the sun. As you get into colder climates, you have different, not different genetics, but you have a different environment which affects the genetics. So people were adapting to getting less sunlight and needed, that's vitamin D. So that's why lighter skinned people, like white people, are less likely to have lactose intolerance. The dark skinned people's body, it protects them away from the sun, but they don't have to synthesize the vitamin D. Whereas the white people who are in the cold and away from the sun, their body better synthesizes the vitamin D. So as you see, a lot of things are connected, right? Our skin color is also affecting was caused by our diet, and also affects like what we can eat and what makes us sick now. Where do we get Indians have I don't want to call you low IQ, but you're not that bright. You need to look some of this up, Jose. You said that Indians are brown and have black skin, but they're not blacks. I explained this to you again because you didn't know this before this episode. The East Africans then went to India. That's why the Indians towards the bottom are more dark-skinned. The Indians towards the top are more light-skinned because they've moved away from the equator, and the light-skinned ones have had more of a mix with the Southern Europeans. But the East Africans went to India, but they also went to Australia. So the reason that you have dark-skinned Indians and have dark-skinned Aborigines is you had black people. They just migrated to the east, and they kept their pigmentation because they stayed still. The Indians and the Australians are still near the equator, so they kept their pigmentation until the British people who conquered the world. The British people went to Northern America, killed the Indians. They went to Australia, killed the Aborigines. And then some of them went to the areas like Palestine and started killing off the Middle Eastern people. So though a lot of white people are trying to say brown people are now moving in on them, if you look at what happened in totality, those same Europeans who went to America, who went to Australia, who went to the Middle East, those same people now are complaining that people are migrating on them, but they built these civilizations that we have today from migrating on others. I'm just trying to give people the whole picture so we can see what's really going on. And your final statement was, and you don't let I don't let Nick Fuentes finish his statements because he says stupid shit. So when I hear it, I stop the tape and respond. He was explaining what he said, not Africans. Yes. But he didn't go into depth like I'm explaining to you guys. Sub-Saharan Africans are not just the West. It's the East and the West. The West Sub-Saharan Africans have different genetics than the East Sub-Saharan Africans, but it's not just because of migration. They just come from different hominids, which are different archaic forms of human beings. And by the way, blacks are always Blacks are inflammatory towards whites because of the history. Also, as maybe people are seeing from me, blacks are a little impulsive. So in terms of impulsivity, blacks are the most impulsive. Then Hispanics and whites are in the middle. And then Asians are the least impulsive. So I'm not going to say that blacks are necessarily the most racist or anything, but I'm willing to at least listen to people who say that sometimes blacks are a little more animated than whites. And I just add into that if we paid attention, we may notice that whites are a little bit more animated than Asians. So that's just something that's happened over time. And if it's an issue that blacks are animated, or if it's an issue that we're impulsive, which it can be, let's say something bad happens and you need to be protected. Being quick to the impulse to protect is not bad. Let's say there's an argument and then without thinking you murder someone. Being quick to the impulse is bad then. So there's nothing wrong with having a fast impulse. The thing is, everybody just needs to be aware of their culture and aware of themselves. If you have fast impulses, just maybe work on making understanding that and trying to think about fast positive solutions. If you have a slower impulse, prepare yourself when something needs to be done fast in advance, or if you have the time, go ahead and think and make the decisions as best as you can. If you like this video, please smash the like button, comment, and subscribe. New shows airing Monday through Thursday.